Alright guys, so I'm back here with another part of our tutorial, and what we did in the last episode is that we set up now the health and all the stats required. So now when we click on enemies, we have all this, as you can see here, the life and everything else. So now what I would like to do here for now is that I would like to create the card system for our character. So what we're gonna do here is that I'm thinking for something similar that I did on the other tutorial for the dev realm about card games. So we're gonna create just like when you press play. So if I open up Paint here to illustrate, good old Paint. So you're gonna have here like the card box, and within this box you're gonna have a list of cards that we're gonna assign to the player when you start. So depending on your character, you may have like 2 attacks. It's gonna be like a random cards assignment. So you're gonna have like 1 attack, 1 defense, maybe 1 surprise or something. So like if you're playing with a healer, you can heal the characters. You're gonna be able to select who you want to heal. So this kind of stuff. So we're gonna implement this part. So without wasting too much time, what we are gonna do is that because I'm building everything now using components, what I would like to do here is that I would like to create this card game component that we can reuse for other things. So I'm going to try to make this as most system agnostic as possible so we can reuse this in our future tutorials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create here the card system, right? And then in here, we are going to create probably a component. So we're going to open up here to Blueprint class. Actor component, let's call this BPC, and we can call this card component. And this usually we're gonna attach the player controller, but let's not worry about this for now. Well, we're gonna open up here the widget. Let's just create a widget, and we're gonna create here a new user interface, a blueprint, this one. And make sure you select user widget. Let's call this WBP main card widget. Okay. Now, to make sure this is working properly, I'm gonna add a canvas because I like to work with a canvas. And within the canvas, we are gonna add basically, just for testing, I'm just gonna add a border. Here, and I'm just gonna leave it like that. I'm just gonna compile and save, and now we can close all this stuff. Okay, the reason why I want to close this is because I want to make this simpler. Now I'm gonna go back to the card system, and here I'm gonna open up, maybe we can close this stuff. We don't need, do we need anything here? Yeah, I guess we need it. Let's just leave it with the begin play. So on the begin play, I'm going to create a widget from the class. Now the class that I'm going to select is the card itself. So I'm going to add it here. Now what I'm going to do is that add, actually I'm going to create a variable, promote to a variable called card widget ref. Gonna make it public, and then the next thing we're gonna do is add to the viewport. All right, and now here we can just leave it as is. That's everything we need. Now the next thing we need to do is that we need to go back to our character. So we're gonna go back to the game, open up your play controller. And now here's a tricky question, right? Like, why are we adding this on the player controller and not on the pawn or on those pawns? This is because the player controller has all the logic we need to control everything, right? Remember, you are the player. You are controlling not only those 2 characters, but you have to handle damages and all sorts. So that's why we're adding on the player controller. So here we're going to just add the card controller. We're going to compile and save. And if you press play, you should see the card here. Right now, of course, it doesn't look great at the moment, but it's just something we have to change. And that's it. That's all we got to do here. So now let's start to work more a little bit with the card stuff. So we're going to close everything. going to go back to the main module. Let's go back to the card system. Let's open up here. Actually, let's create here a new widget blueprint called WBP card, right? This is going to be what the card's going to look like. And usually, we can use a border, right? What I can do sometimes when I'm building card games, I can just search for example, Hearthstone card or something like that. You open up this, and you can open up the link in a new tab, right? It's gonna open image in a new tab. Did I download the image? Yeah, I downloaded the image. Perfect. So what I can do here is just go test card. We're gonna create our own design, but this just gives us an idea of how we can work, right? Now what I like to do here is on the card system, I like to create a folder called texture, and now here I'm just gonna drag and drop this. By the way, you don't have to do this. It's just so we have more or less some measurements, you know, to deal with. So I'm gonna assign the card here. Nice. Now what I like to do in those cases is that I like to wrap this with a scale box first, right? And then I do desired on screen. Well, that doesn't look super great. So what I can actually do here is wrap with a size box, so we can make sure that always have the same size. And now we just need to play. Let me just double check what's the original size of this image on Windows here. So properties, 400 by 558. It's a weird size, but 404 558. Okay, that's really filled. Okay. Doesn't look too bad, you know. Of course, we're gonna make a design that's more that we can actually change, but don't worry about this right now. Okay, now we have the card, which is great. So if we go back to the card system, we're gonna open up this stuff, right? We're just gonna drag and drop the card here, and we should probably do size to content. And let me just check how it looks like. I think it looks good, but it's too big on the page. So let's just go back to the card again. Let's just try to get the size of the card. So the trick here is that we always have to try to make sure that we get the size right of this. So let's just try to... Okay, I think it looks better. So it's still a little bit... I think it's fine. It could be a little bit bigger, but I think this is a perfect size. Then after we can work on top of this and all sorts of things. So now we just need to implement more or less how the card looks like, right? On my game, I will make every single component changeable, but you can make it so every card as well has the image. But anyway, now we just need to play around with this stuff right here, right? So the idea here is that we're gonna wrap this with horizontal box, right? Horizontal box, and I can add multiples, right? And the idea that as you add, the padding on the left could be like -10 or -50. By the way, this can be like even -100, right? So it's just that it can be dynamically, right? So I think I like this. This is a good idea. So what I'm gonna anchor this right here. Right, I'm gonna do 0.05 or maybe a 1. So it's always on the bottom. And realistically, we won't have more than 5 cards. So because this is not like a Hearthstone where you have a bulk of cards, but the idea is that we're gonna be able to drag and drop and drag the card somewhere around this area, and then it's gonna trigger the damage part, right? So I think now we have a good system, right? We more or less have a nice system. Now what I can do is that I think, let me double check on hover. Do we do this on here? visibility change. Do we have, let me just double check one thing. So when I get this, can I do bind event on? No, we don't have anything. But what we can do here is that on the box itself, we have, where's the event? On hover. We have on mouse move, mouse button down, mouse move. Create a bind. Let me double check on mouse moves. Let's double check. Okay, we can use this, right? You see that we have this event. Perfect. So now what we can do here is, I can actually delete that. Don't worry about this. You can do this in many ways, by the way. Oh, where is it? What's the error here? Just double check. Property. I think we have to remove the binding. Yeah, don't worry. So there's a couple of ways you can do, right? So for example, what we can do is that we can go back to the graph and we can do something like on mouse enter or on mouse leave, right? So I'm gonna do on mouse enter and on mouse leave, okay? So now we can do something like print, for example, enter, and then we can do something like leave. So the trick here is try to make this as simple as possible, right? So for example, we can do something like, for example, let me double check. So we can get the scale. Do we have something like the scale of this? Scale. We do have the scale. We can set up the scale to 1.5, for example. So what we can do is that we get the size box. So it's going to be main card container. All right. Make sure it's a variable. And go here. And we're going to set scale, right? You can set render scale. So we know that by default is 1, 1. We can do 1.5. All right. And once we leave this, we can make everything go back to 0, 0. And now what we can do? Yeah. So actually it needs to be a 1, 1. Sorry, my bad. Not 0, 0. So you can go back to do this, right? Now, I think what we can do is that we have timeline, create. Yeah, we don't have access to the timeline here. We could do like some kind of effect. But what I like to do here, for example, right? And you can go to animations. You select the main container and we just go on hover, right? And we can add an animation from the main container. And we search for scale or render or transform. Transform. Now, so what we're going to do in a period of like 0.70 seconds, right? 0.7. So what we can do is that we get from the current scale, right, to that, we can do to 1.5 and 1.5. So it does that. You see? So if I press play, it does that, like a smooth animation. And then what we can even do here as well, I think on Hearthstone, when you hover some items, as when it does that, the transform changes a little bit, so it goes to, oh not that, sorry, it goes to like up, something like that, in a very, very subtle, not too much changes, something like that. So you just, yeah, it does that, you know. So what we can do now, this is called timeline animation, right? And we're just gonna get this, and instead of doing this whole set of render stuff, we just do play animation, right? And that plays the animation, and I can copy that, I can go back, and I can do reverse, right? And I can always restore state. So let's see what happened. Okay, now there's a bug, which is a little bit annoying. But what we can do is that we'll play the animation only once, and now we set the scale, set render, how's it called again? On hover, oh sorry, no, the main container, set scale, yes, perfect. What we need to do is add a delay of 0.75 because it's more or less the time it takes, and then we do 1.5, and then I'm gonna do the same from here, and then you just put 1 to 1. Let's see. For some reason it's not keeping the right size. Let me double check how's the timeline happening. So go back to the animation. I mean, maybe it's because I pressed reset state. I think probably it's something to do with that. Maybe I don't even need to do that, you know. Yeah, to be honest, I don't think we need this. It's just that I mistakenly pressed on the restore state. I don't think we're gonna need this. That looks quite cool, actually. You see? That looks really nice. It's of course the art here, in this case the World of Warcraft art, helps a lot, but it's just very smooth. Alright, so the next step we have to do here, and I'm going to do this on the next one, is the mechanic to drag and drop that and place it here. So when you drag and drop the card, it creates a replica, and then as soon as you drop right there, then you can actually place the card or delete the card. And that's it, guys. That's everything I had for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I see you in the next one.